Welcome to Box Out Banter, where both of our teams are now out of the playoffs. I'm Chris Okamura.
Wow.
Joining me as always, Mr. Jordan Christmas.
Wow, just right to the point. Just
It really is. Welcome to the club. First off, it's this season has been an interesting one.
Thank you. Hope the couch there's like a big enough spot on the couch for me.
Yeah, I got you, fam. It's right here. It's pretty comfortable. It's pretty comfortable. Man. It's the thing about this season is like it's a weird one all around. So like it's hard to the couch is more comfy than usual.
Oh, for sure.
It's a softer.
You're like the friend in the line where we asked to reserve a spot, for the midnight release, and you held it down. So thanks for holding that spot on the couch for me.
I feel you, man. So Jordan, I do want to give you the time, like I did last episode, to talk about
it. It won't be as long, honestly.
I'll give you the floor. Take it away.
Okay, so last night was shocking, but not shocking at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It became apparent, probably going back to Game 5, that the Sixers weren't just going to have enough offense to score. And I just think at the end of the day, and it comes back to what it was every year, you can't expect to. Yeah, it's great to be an elite defensive team, but still, at some point during the playoffs, you need to score, because even the best defenses get scored on. I mean, what's the phrase you hear all the time? Good offense beats good defense any day of the week. The Sixers basically had to play perfect defense for the entire series, which is certainly, they're capable of doing it. It's just asking for it every game is unsustainable, considering that, Tobias Harris is your second option, and when he's not going, the offense kind of falls apart immediately, especially when, Ben Simmons not only just won't shoot a jumper, won't look at the rim, like he won't even do what gets him his normal points that he scores, whether it be attacking the rim, attacking a mismatch. The Hawks were able to get away with playing Trae Young, Bogdanovic, Gallinari, Collins, and Capella. And the reason they were able to play Gallinari and go big like that was, one, for obviously the stretching the floor on the offensive end, but Gallinari could just chill on defense because Ben Simmons would hand the ball off, walk to the dunker spot, no screens, no cutting, no nothing, and would just do nothing. And honestly, everybody's going to talk about that play where he had the wide open dunk and passed it to Matisse Thybulle, who then was fouled and made one of two. That play was obviously, with everyone else, that play was really shocking. But there were just a few points in the game where I knew that this wasn't going to happen. So Trae Young at one point was like 2 for 17 in the first half, and the Sixers were down 3. And that was already with a dominant first half from Joel Embiid, and getting some help here and there from Tobias, and Seth Curry being in foul trouble hurt. But you see my point here: when your second best player is your best ball handler and passer, but he can't have the ball in his hands because he can't score, and he's lost his confidence, and he can't shoot free throws, and it's not even the free throw percentage, he's just lost confidence altogether, and the free throw percentage just dipped to really just putrid levels. And that's where you have it. I mean, just think about it, Chris. So if you just take away Joel Embiid and Trae Young straight up, just look at the roster up and down. Are the Sixers truly more talented than the Hawks? Like, serious question. Because they have Bogdanovic, who was honestly like, well, Bucks might make the finals anyway, but at the start of the season, we were just like, that if they had got that guy, that would have been an Eastern Conference finalist for sure. And then you got Kevin Huerter, who was a nice player coming out of college, could do a little bit more than he gets credit for off the dribble, just because everybody assumes he's white, all he can do is shoot, but he's actually kind of athletic, has some bounce, and also is big, 6'7", was roasting Seth Curry all night on the defensive end. But hey, we need Seth Curry. Oh, my alarm went off. That was my nap alarm to wake up and be angry during the start of this podcast. No, but in all seriousness, it was just a lot of things. And honestly, like Doc Rivers, what can we say at this point about the guy? Like,
yeah,
a 10-man rotation in a game 7, and then you randomly play Shake Milton in the fourth quarter just to try something. And it's not Shake's fault or anything. But it became apparent that the offense just boiled down to get the ball to Embiid and bail us out all the time. And I know everybody's going to get on Embiid for having 8 turnovers in back-to-back games, but it wasn't like he was turning the ball over, passing it out of the post, or throwing a careless pass out of the post, or dribbling into a triple team or whatever. It was that they would give him the ball on the nail and they would ask him to create and go into a ton of bodies because it just became cramped in there. Simmons' guy was already there. Tobias didn't have it for the last, I would say, 8 out of the last 14 quarters of this series, just spanning over games 5 and 7 through 7. It just became really tough. And it's become apparent that the Sixers need guards, and it's time to focus around building around Joel Embiid's prime, man. Honestly, I was more bummed after game 5 than I am now, only because it was part, put the team out of the misery, old Yeller style, right? But it was also just changes need to happen. And I know the chances of Doc Rivers being fired is not high, considering that ownership would have to pay contracts for the next few years to 2 coaches that have been fired recently. But a change just has to happen there. But also, just it's hard to win when Ben Simmons is considered your second best player and the point guard of a championship team. We now know that he is not that, nor will he improve on even the low-hanging fruit unless he gets out of his own head to improve on that stuff. So it was a tough series, but I think at the end of the day, the Hawks just, not only did they have more offensive talent than the Sixers, where everybody could create their own shot, they were the mentally tougher team. And it was epitomized by, Trae Young, who has been spectacular all playoffs. So full credit to the Hawks. The Sixers should have, won this in 4 or 5. But the bottom line is another Doc Rivers team blows another winnable series. And this was more egregious than the Toronto loss, because at least Toronto was the eventual champions and Kawhi was God mode. But this one, it's going to sting for a bit, and I just feel bad for Embiid.
Yeah. I mean, so this again goes back to Doc, where it's a thing where we talked about it last week about, for a coach that everyone brings up is a chemistry guru and like a personalities guy and a players coach, and like, hey, maybe he's not as strong on X's and O's and the rotations, stuff like that, but he like gets a team to play together. The amount of players and even himself that were coming out and really throwing Ben under the bus here at post game was kind of surprising.
Yeah, that part was surprising. I'm actually not surprised with Embiid, because Embiid
he's done that before.
Embiid has actually done that plenty of times. But yeah.
Like Doc, I think when someone asks you, "Hey, is Ben Simmons still a playoff or a championship caliber point guard, or can he be a championship caliber point guard?" And as a coach that is a players coach and a personality guy and someone that's all about giving players confidence and building chemistry and playing together, and when your answer is, "I don't know that answer right now,"
I think if he tried to do his usual shtick that he's been doing all year, which is basically at some points, reporters would ask questions about Ben's like a scoring at times or whatever, or like even in the Washington series when the Wizards stole Game 4, in part not all, but in part because of Hackabin. They asked Doc Rivers if he ever thought about taking Ben out at any point, and he verbatim called them an idiot and saying he would like to see the person who would suggest that, because then I know they don't know basketball. And then to see the answer change with every passing series, especially in the Hawks series, it's like, he's got to make his free throws. If he does, he stays. If he doesn't, he's out. And then now all of a sudden to come to this, I think Doc realized that he just can't BS the public, especially the Philly fans, anymore, because we all saw it. Like, there is a lot of people watching teams in the playoffs than they normally would watch those said teams in the regular season. Everybody saw that. And was it ideal? No. But at the same time, it was like, what can you do? And Embiid doesn't surprise me, though, because think about it, he has capitulated in every way. He has become an above average 3-point shooter for the first time in his career. People will be like, well, why does he stand out at the 3-point line sometimes? Well, because you need to accommodate for Ben. Embiid can run dribble handoffs with people. He can run with a pick and roll guard like Jimmy Butler, who ended up taking the reins of our offense towards the end of that playoff run. Like, Embiid has been so adaptable, and honestly more adaptable than he gets credit for, because people will always be like, well, what kind of players can fit around Embiid? Any type of player can fit around Embiid. I mean, he's proved it. He's even accommodated his game for Ben also. I just think you saw a guy who I think in some ways has had it, is fed up, because he has changed his game, capitulated. He has asked Ben to help him space the floor. And then I sent you that article earlier from Yaron Wiseman, who wrote Tanking to the Top, about his conversations with Simmons about, great article. And I still need to pick up the book too. It was very jarring, the stuff he was talking with Ben about, and just his unwillingness to change. And that's what's disappointing. And that's not to say Ben is still not a good player. I think he is. I think everybody overreacting now and trying to assess his trade value. I just think it's going to recorrect itself, and it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle. Like, it's not. There's a reason why people are salivating at the fact of buying low on Ben Simmons, because we all know the talent's there. Like, I just think everybody, like with everything, everything's swinging one way and everybody thinks it's this, but I highly doubt the trade value is like, you proposed Wiseman and Wiggins. I don't think it's that.
No, it's not that low. I didn't propose it. Someone proposed that to me. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I think something like I've gone through trade scenarios in my head, because I honestly believe, and again, you can think this, I next to LeBron and AD is an interesting matchup, an interesting kind of mix of players. And so I was kind of thinking about, like, is that even possible, and would it be even work?
That would be ugly in terms of spacing. I would not wish that on you.
It definitely would, but like I would view him as like my dad put it, Point Dwight.
Well, that's what. It's funny that you say Point Dwight. This is one of my problems with Doc Rivers. This was my main issue, not one of my main issues. One of my few issues with Doc. Dwight Howard was actively detrimental in this series, not only on both ends on the floor, but in-game moments, like boneheaded flagrant fouls because he's frustrated he didn't get a call. Like, do we really need you to commit a flagrant foul out of frustration when we're in a 1-point game in a Game 7 of playoffs? Why is it that Dwight Howard shares the floor with Trae Young? Every time Dwight Howard's on the floor, Trae Young's like, sick. It's time to go to work and cook. Like, Dwight Howard was a minus 30 in this series. Like, and I know Ben had his struggles, but you would think that Doc would be creative and try to, put Ben at center. It worked in the last series, but unfortunately, he did it out of necessity because Embiid was hurt. He missed most of Game 4 and didn't play in Game 5, and so Doc had to put Simmons at center. Like, why were you forced to do that? Why not just go to it? And yeah, you might allow more points because you don't have rim protection. But those Ben Simmons, Tobias Harris only lineups with no Embiid and no Howard, those were like I looked it up yesterday. They were a offensive rating of 122 in the playoffs. And unfortunately, they only played like 60 possessions because you like at some point you have to change something up because the Tobias with 4 bench players lineup that wasn't working, and you still went to it. And yeah, the roster, you have limited options, but there were easy lineups you could have played out there. Also stop running those BS plays where we pretend that Simmons is in an offensive set and then he hands it off to Curry and then just meanders to the dunker spot. Like, asking Seth Curry to carry your offense, like, come on, man. Like,
yeah, that's real bad.
Like, at some point, like, Doc had to switch something up. And maybe Simmons at the 5 gets him going in transition. Like, we've seen it. We've seen the perks of Simmons at the center. Yeah, there's flaws, but at least they could have switched. I didn't like that we stayed in the same base coverage with Trae Young the entire series. Drop coverage. Like, no switch. Like, hardly switching, even though it worked in this series. No trapping, even though it worked in this series, because you would rather have Capella, Collins, or Herter make a decision rather than Trae Young just get the ball out of his hands. Just stuff like that. Like, I don't want Doc Rivers back as the head coach of the 76ers, but he's going to be. And I would rather fine. You know what? If we're going to keep him, I'm going to throw up probably the entire season while it's happening, but at least give him some traditional players to where he can play simple stuff, because he's an old school stubborn coach that won't change.
Yeah. It's an interesting scenario. I think so. I don't see Ben Simmons being a Sixer.
He can't be.
Yeah,
he can't be.
You know, I'd be shocked if Morey isn't already on the phones. Just kind of like maybe not making deals, but at least checking
the temperature. Yeah. Like, look, I mean, when Morey came in, like, none of this is like his, like, or he started. So like he could do this is why I'm interested in this offseason. This is going to be Morey's like first full real offseason with the team. And he's already identified that shooters around Ben and Joel work, but he also realized that he needed something more. That's why he tried to trade for Harden. That's why he tried to trade for Kyle Lowry. And
man, you know what's funny?
If we know Morey's... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thinking about this now, even if you switched Ben Simmons and Harden, one-legged Harden now, they still blow them out. They still blow out the Hawks in this series.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
The one-legged Harden that can't move still blows out this Hawks team.
Yeah, because at least he would have, shot a few step-back threes, but and facilitated like it. And so basically, it's come down to he's already tried to trade for Harden. He's already tried to trade for Lowry. Morey has a history of what? Stars matter. Those are the guys who win you the championship. And so I already know he's hunting for a few options. So I came up with 2 realistic trades, because I think, or not trades per se, but frameworks of trades. Because I was thinking, unless Damian Lillard requests a trade specifically, that's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. 99.5% chance that the Sixers aren't trading for Lillard. Bradley Beal is more out of reach, but it's doable if you throw in everything you can, right?
Right.
And so then I was thinking, okay, well, CJ McCollum's probably the other compromise, because Blazer fans are also sick of CJ McCollum at this point. That roster has reached its expiration date. The Blazers have a lot of scoring guards. Even if they trade CJ, they still have they still have Norman Powell. They still have Dame Lillard. They still have Anthony Simons. Like, they have a bunch of scoring options, but they need a facilitator and somebody who can shore up their defense, because they've been putrid. So that would actually be a good fit for both teams. I think that's the most obvious trade. Everybody has already said it. Basically, it would. And I've worked the trade machine. It would be some form of Simmons and McCollum just straight up, or we might have to throw in a piece, but like they're both depressed assets, so you could probably just do a 1-for-1 trade. But the other one I was thinking about, especially after reading John Hollinger's latest piece from The Athletic. Reminded me that there's definitely somebody I want more than CJ McCollum, and I actually think is doable. And I think this is the move actually Morey is going to pull off. That because he'll find the solutions and find an unexpected one too. I think he's going to try to go for Zach LaVine.
Oh,
of the Chicago Bulls.
That's a very good.
So the Bulls are like the Trailblazers, have a lot of scoring guards, but they also have a center, Vucevic, who is really good. Has limitations defensively, but can stretch the floor, is a rebounder, is a good post player, is a good pick and pop from the mid-range as well. And they have a bunch of scoring guards. They have Kobe White, Patrick Williams. He showed some scoring chops this year, and also he's an athletic wing. The Bulls just have guards and athletic wings, but what did we talk about on this podcast all year with the Bulls? They have a lot of scoring talent, but they don't have a facilitator, one that ties the room together, like the Rug and the Big Lebowski. You got to tie the room together. And Ben Simmons provides passing, but also, much like the Blazers, they need to shore up their defense. And Ben Simmons definitely is a perfect complement for even somebody like a Karl Anthony Towns or a Nikola Vucevic, where they might not be the best centers defensively, but at least they have an elite, versatile, maybe the best perimeter defender in basketball to back them up. So how this would work is I think the only way it would work is LaVine and Al-Farouq Aminu's expiring. That was the only trade that would work. That way, the Bulls have a 24-year-old with special talents locked in for 5 years. They don't have to try to extend LaVine, who is a free agent after next season, or the 2021-22 season. And the Sixers, they have an expiring contract, and then they have the 3-level score that has improved every year and has really just become a dynamic offensive player. And the Sixers will have the defenders to cover for LaVine's deficiencies. So I think that is also a win-win for both teams. So the Bulls one is the one that I was looking at where I was like, okay, that might be the one where Daryl might sneak in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely an interesting thing. I think that this offseason just gets more this loss makes this offseason so interesting, and I think the two teams that are like going to shake things up the most to me are the Sixers and the Clippers.
I think the Clippers are good I think they are. I think Kawhi's coming back, especially with his injury. We don't know if he's gonna. He's definitely gonna opt out, but he might just go back to the Clippers. I just want to say one more thing before we close the book on the Sixers here. 2 more things. One, I'm all about protecting Joel Embiid's prime at this point. We don't know how long it will last, but 2, we just can't wait for people to try and catch up and develop and hope that they compliment him. Like, we just got to do what we can to maximize his prime. 2, will the anti-process cretins just stop with it's the end of the process? No, the process worked. Joel Embiid is living proof that the process worked. The definition of the process, and I will say it until I am dead and buried 6 feet under, and it'll be engraved in my tombstone. NBA history. What wins a championship? Teams with the guy. Preferably 2 guys, but definitely an MVP candidate. How do you get those? High draft picks. How do you get a high draft pick? You lose. And yes, you're going to miss, but that was the point. Multiple chances at the apple. And then you get the guy. And now it's time to build around him. We thought it was Embiid and Simmons. There were some misses. There was some weirdness. Fultz forgot how to shoot. Zaire Smith almost died from a sesame allergy.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yep, they traded Mikal Bridges when they probably just should have kept him. There has been mistakes, but at the end of the day, they got the transcendent talent. The process worked. And I know people want to pearl clutch about the morals of winning and losing on purpose and the human element of it, all of which I get, but also irrelevant to the definition of what the goal of the process was. It worked, but now it's on now it's on the Sixers to remember the process again and build around Embiid and be diligent with it, because they definitely cut steps and corners on the way. And now it's up to Morey, the architect of it all, who brought us Sam Hinkie at first. Now it's up to him to finish it off. And it's all about Embiid at this point. And that's all I have.
No, totally agree with you. I think like that's the kind of thing where, obviously, as long as you have Embiid, as long as he's playing for the Sixers, I think you can have a thing where you're like, yeah, okay, like it worked. This process worked.
No, like, dude, this is the first time, like, in a long time that I have seen my team in the playoffs 4 seasons in a row.
Yeah.
Like, and multiple 50-win seasons. Like, there have been 3 50-win pace seasons, winning percentages already in the last 4 years than I have experienced, going all the way back to 2001 when we won I believe it was 51 games. We were the number 1 seed in the East.
Yeah.
Like, it was. Oh no! Now I got to check the 2001 Sixers. I'm pretty sure it was way more than that, actually. But anyway, that was, at that point, that was the only time we had won. Yeah, 56 wins. At that point, that was the only time in my life a Sixer team had won more than 50 games. It has been a long time. Like, I was fine with the painless 2.5 years of tanking. Did it suck sometimes? Yes. But I get to watch Embiid play every day, and so we got to build around him as such. He is the guy.
Yeah, totally with you. And it's sad because it's a thing where I remember last year watching them play the Celtics, and he just looked exhausted.
Yeah.
And then looking at him this year, he still just looks like he it's a frustration, but it's also just like a what else do I do?
He has to do so much. He has to be the engine on the offense, and he has to be spectacular on the defensive end of the floor. And, I made this point the other night as I was watching Rudy Gobert just get roasted again and again and again and again and again by Terrence Mann. Like, if Embiid was out there, like, with the perimeter scores the Jazz have, yeah, the Jazz don't have the best perimeter defenders outside of Royce O'Neal, right? But Embiid has made made elite defenses out of lesser defenders, like, routinely. And if Embiid had the perimeter scores that Gobert had, could you imagine the relief he would feel? He would be like, I could actually spend more energy on the defensive end. I actually can do a few pick and rolls and get some easier baskets. I don't have to chisel my way on the block all the time and exhaust myself. Like, it's time. There's obvious stuff that needs to be fixed here. And so playmaking and scoring off the dribble are the 2 priorities for me.
Okay. I think you're right on.
Speaking of the Jazz, let's move on, because that is the eulogy on the Sixers. I am now officially a Phoenix Suns fan.
Are we ready to have some fun? Are we ready to have some fun with some Jazz slander segment?
I am ready to have some fun with Jazz slander.
Oh my goodness.
I am. So before I start my Jazz slander, I am a Donovan Mitchell fan and a Mike Conley fan. Mike Conley's been one of my favorite players for a long time. Lefty gang, shout out.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mike Conley guy.
Those are the only 2 players, pretty much, and Clarkson, that
I'm a big Joe Ingles guy.
Jingling Joe. Yeah, I like Joe Ingles too. But man, the entire state of Utah, Jazz bloggers, tough scene. Just a tough scene. Throwing defensive graphs at us like you're my dad, who was a math teacher when I was growing up. Yeah, okay, you can throw out your LeBrons, your Raptors, your T-Rexes, your pterodactyls, whatever other acronyms and graphs you want to throw out. Rudy Gobert is a great defender. he's great in one area, which is rim protection. And like Draymond said on TNT, if you get a great defender in an area where he is not as great and uncomfortable, he can be had. And that was the case with the Clippers. And that is why I picked the Clippers in 6. Because if the Clippers went small, the Rudy Gobert is going to be guarding one of those guys. And Quinn Snyder was too stubborn to make the adjustment. He didn't want to take him off. That Terrence Mann game was incredible, man.
Like, dude, the Mann explosion.
The Mann explosion. Mike Breen was in his bag too, by the way, bro, just off of man puns alone.
Oh my god. When he said the Mann explosion, I've never found myself praying for Richard Jefferson to be on broadcast more.
Oh, Richard Jefferson would have made that real. He would have brought towing the line. He would have brought it to close to the line, like maybe looking over the line, but then looking back over, coming back over. Like,
oh my god, I was begging for some hot Richard Jefferson takes.
Yeah, like a Richard Jefferson interjection or a rebuttal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dude, as soon as he said a Mann explosion, I lost it. I couldn't handle it anymore.
well, he had a dunk. He had a putback dunk. In the second half, and Mike Breen said, "Oh, what a man!" And I automatically thought of that In Vogue song. What a man! What a man! What a man! What a mighty good. You don't know what I'm talking about.
With you. No, I'm totally with you.
Okay. So I was like, "Oh shit, he's invoking In Vogue too." All right, Mike Breen. Like Mike Breen. There's no person happier right now than Mike Breen, who is back in arenas now, because he has been hyped these last few games. He was really good in the Suns Clippers game yesterday. I watched that game this morning because I missed it yesterday because of Father's Day activities, and it was a great game. Great Devin Booker game.
After the Jazz slander, we'll talk
but after the Jazz, yes.
But yeah, that fantastic game. But I do want to say with the Jazz, so I took some heat from some Jazz people, because Jazz fans more than anyone else seem to go looking for the slander.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you've noticed this.
It makes sense. I've seen it. It's happened to me.
So there was a thing going around that was Booker, Beal, Mitchell, rank them. And to me, it's pretty clear. And again, I'm lower on Donovan Mitchell than you are. I still like him. I think he's very inconsistent. I think that the consistency thing is. I think he's talented. He's athletic.
I think he's consistently shown up in the playoffs. I think he's a superstar. I think he's shown up in games where it matters. That's where it cut.
I just don't think so. For me, it's just a thing of I don't like the consistency through the course of a game. I think a lot of his scoring comes in stretches and not consistently throughout a game. And it's I don't know if I can rely on him on any given possession. I don't know what Donovan Mitchell I'm going to get when I give him the ball. And again, these are just my opinions, and I know we probably differ on how we feel about him, but I also feel out of these three players, he's probably the least skilled of the three, and I don't think that's a dig at all. I think that he's the least skilled of these three. He's just the most athletic out of these three. And so I put Booker first, and I put 2 spaces Beal, and then I put 5 or 6 spaces, and then Mitchell. And so again, and I qualified it. I was to me, it's consistency. And then I brought up the athleticism argument, whatever. And I had some Jazz fans very, very angry. Now again, I'm lower on him than most people. I know that for sure. But again, I don't think it's out of the argument to say that he is the worst of the three of them. And again, I
would take Booker and Beal over Mitchell myself too. I just think Mitchell has elevated to the point of borderline superstar because he's shot over 60% true shooting wise the last 2 playoffs and his average over 33. I don't think Mitchell's scoring has been the reason the Jazz have flamed out. I think it's
no. I don't think that at all.
I think it's mainly because the Stifle Tower and some people called him French Clint Capella or Bismack Biyombo. He just can't take advantage of anybody on the offensive end. That's what it is. Like,
no, I totally agree with you.
Every time he would get a switch or he would flash to the middle and he would get the ball, sometimes he would either fumble it or he would have some awkward mechanical footwork and brick it, or basically his only source of offense was lobs and putbacks. And when you run a small lineup like that, that's just detrimental for Gobert, who is just getting absolutely roasted on the other end. By the way, when is ESPN going to start giving like Tim Legler a raise and more spots? Because he is like, I think he's clearly the best basketball analyst on that show at ESPN. Like, he's incredible, like, explaining this. But yeah, the Jazz also just had too many perimeter players that just don't defend like that, except for Royce O'Neal. And so that also didn't help Gobert, but with the way the Jazz play defense, it was just easy to exploit. And I'm happy they got booted out of the playoffs because Jazz fans don't deserve nice things. John Stockton all of a sudden is in an anti-vax documentary. Like, that was also a bad omen for the Jazz for Game 6. Just it was a bad day. It was a bad day all around. I feel bad for my guy Mitchell and Conley, but shame for the shame for the city of Utah. That's basically my Seinfeld reaction to it.
Yeah, for sure. For me and the Jazz, like, I don't. If Gobert was getting paid less, I wouldn't be as mad, or I wouldn't be as like. I'm not even upset or mad because I'm not a Jazz fan, right? But like,
what's it? I'm gonna look at this contract right now.
It's huge. It kicks in next year.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making over 30 a year.
Yep. He's going to be making $46 million in his age 33 season.
Yeah.
In 2025-26.
And he's not Chris Paul.
Nope. He is not. You are correct. But that game was the epitome of it, though. That Game 6 was the epitome of what we've been talking about for the last 3 years. And look, I get it. Fans will defend their guys and stuff like that. I am certainly guilty of that also. And, maybe not seeing the truth as soon as somebody else and stuff like that. I think actually some of that has to do with Ben Simmons a little bit.
Yeah.
You want it to work out, et cetera, et cetera. So I get it. But it's become apparent now for 3 years, especially with the way the Jazz play. They really everything revolves around Rudy Gobert, the offense, the defense. It's Rudy Gobert's screen setting that is why the Jazz have the offense that they have, where they take so many threes, because it's supposed to be spacing and Gobert dives to the rim, etc. But there's a ceiling on that, and it was ridiculous. And that's the other thing with Gobert. Like, he is such an analytics darling that how analytics people can get. They could get so matter of fact and smug about it and be like, well, actually, if he's really valuable to the team with the best record in the West, then he's the most valuable player. No, Rudy Gobert is not an MVP candidate this year. He was not. Like, let's stop that. Like, it's that type of shit. It's like, okay, if he really is that impactful and valuable, let's see it. And then what he's supposed to be good at just gets schemed right out of the playoffs. Like, that's just is what it is. And I don't care if Jazz fans can at this podcast. It's at Box Out Banter. You can at me. It's at Jordan_Xmas. Like, sorry, dog. Like, he could get schemed off, especially when Royce O'Neal is the only viable perimeter defender.
Yeah. And again, this goes back to, I don't want to keep harping on it, but it's something we talked about last week about how there's just other defenders in the NBA that can do more than he can and excel.
I would easily take Joel Embiid over Gobert defensively.
Oh, yeah. I would take Embiid. I would take
Miles Turner.
I would take a healthy Anthony Davis. Like, there's a lot of guys that do what he does, but better and with more versatility.
Yeah, like, they won't get like people will say like, well, Gobert's better on the Switch than he gets credit for. Okay, yeah, he could stay in front of you could show me 2 clips in a game where he could stay in front of somebody for once, but Embiid, Davis, like those guys, they do it way more consistently, and they have better technique than Gobert, and they have better feet than Gobert. Gobert has like plodding brick feet, like he's nimble and he tries to.
AD and Embiid look like guards when they move.
Yeah. Yep. Like
Embiid,
Gobert looks like a stiff when he tries to walk out there.
Yeah, and it's so funny because sometimes like I'll watch him on offense and I go, okay, there's the screen, there's the roll, okay, there's a shot, oh, he gets the rebound and put back, and then someone on the commentary will be like, and that's why Rudy Gobert, and I was like, no, that's all he can do. That's all he can do.
Yeah. Again, he's a good player, just not as good as I don't think he's as good as everybody says he is. And there are definitely more defenders I would take over. I would take even this level of Draymond Green over Rudy Gobert. Honestly, I think Draymond Green and Kawhi Leonard are the 2 best defenders of the last 15 years. Like, not Gobert.
15 years? Now you're getting into prime Dwight, my friend, and I
15
will not
years.
have...
Okay, you're right. Dwight Howard too. Okay, let's go 10 years.
Prime Dwight was
Prime Dwight. Yeah, we talked about it last week. Like Prime Dwight was incredible. Okay, so go back to 2000. Since 2010, Draymond and Kawhi have been those 2 standard bearers for defense.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Jazz definitely have a good team, and who knows? Like if they had Conley to start the series, maybe things would have turned out differently. This playoffs is wide open, but at the end of the day, their greatest strength was the Clippers turned the Jazz's greatest strength into their greatest weakness, as corny and movie catchy that sounds.
The thing is, that happens every year.
Yep.
This isn't new.
Mm-mm.
So I don't know, and I think that they're even in a worse spot than the Sixers are because you can't trade Gobert.
No one wants Gobert.
Yeah. So I don't know where
they're going to be stuck winning They're going to be stuck winning 50 games a year and maybe hoping they break through to the Western Conference Finals once, a la Portland.
Yeah. They're stuck in the Portland cycle.
It's really Donovan Mitchell has to go up the next level, and Mike Conley has to find the fountain of youth. Like that's the only way the Jazz could visibly improve.
Okay, this is
raise their ceiling.
This is a dumb question.
Okay.
And what happens if you put Rocco on this team?
Robert Covington in place of who?
Just as another rotation guy. Gives you an extra defender, a shooter. Give you a better perimeter defender.
See, the thing with Rocco is he's more of an off-ball defender. He'll get toast. Yeah. He's toast now as a one-on-one defender, and he was average to begin with. And I love my guy Rocco, of course. I don't think he raises. Sixer fans had civil wars about Rocco, and I was on the pro Covington side.
Yeah, so my thing is what if you put Rocco on this team, if just as another guy that can get out there and at least stick with someone, because right now the way they have it, it's like Bogdan and Ingles trying to scurry around.
And Clarkson, Conley got picked on.
Yeah,
in Game 6, it would help for sure. I don't think it would raise the needle that much though. I really do think they just need I think Bojan is fine. Is fine as a defender, but you kind of need more stuff around him. So maybe that would help in a way. I still would have picked the Clippers just because, the engine of it all is Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
So I don't think Rocco would have helped that much. As much as a lot of teams could use Rocco.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, I just don't like the Jazz. I don't like Jazz. I'm not a huge Donovan Mitchell guy. I'm like Gobert, whatever. Not a big fan.
And by the way, the Jazz is should be in New Orleans. Like,
yeah.
Why the fuck are they called the Utah Jazz again? And not like,
why are the Lakers called the Lakers? They should be in Minneapolis.
That is true. So you guys should only count 12 championships.
No, we're good. I do want to retire Mike. I'm of the crowd that demands that we retire Mikan's jersey, but you know, I don't know why we don't.
Oh wow. I'm surprised his jersey wasn't retired.
Yeah. So that's why it's a big thing of like, if you don't retire the Mikan jerseys, you can't claim the Mikan championships. Kind of where I'm at.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, if they retire Mikan jerseys, then fine, we're good.
Then you're back. Then you're back in. You're like 16, baby.
Yeah, but you know what? We're getting ahead of ourselves here a little bit. Let's talk.
How about my son Devin Booker?
I want to talk about the Suns. Yeah, so we talked about this earlier. To me, Suns have an open door to win a ring, an easy ring.
I think they're they got to be the favorites. And pretty clearly. I don't think it's as easy. I do think the Bucks figured some stuff out. They finally shortened their rotation and figured out that Giannis should probably play center. He had a great game 7. But the Suns are the most complete team. They have the 2 best players playing right now in Chris Paul and Devin Booker. DeAndre Ayton's been spectacular. And it's good. This series is going to be interesting because the Suns actually have somebody that can take advantage of the Clippers' small lineup. DeAndre Ayton runs the floor hard. He seals, he catches, he finishes. He could shoot the jumper a little bit, even though his baseline jumper really wasn't working in game 1. But I'm telling you, man, as a day one Devin Booker stockholder, like the price of the brick going up.
Yeah.
Like it's honestly, we need to do more thought exercises with this because I talked about it before. We just throw around the good stats, bad team guy label so often. And I think that's partially because Bill Simmons and his methods and his way of looking at history has poisoned the discourse a little bit. But how could you not look at Devin Booker, somebody who was averaging all these points on league average efficiency on terrible teams, which is really hard to do. And you see a guy who has passing chops, can shoot off the dribble, has a post game, idolizes Kobe. And you look at him and be like, you can't build a winning team around this guy. He's not a winning player. Like, what? Like, when the guy is passing to Marquise Chris and Dragon Bender, I mean, when Ricky Rubio's not spacing the floor for you, like, all the misses they've had in the draft, like, I am just really happy that Devin Booker is finally on a winning team where he could show his talents. And how cold is it that his first triple-double of his career came in his first career Western Conference game? He really controlled the pace of that entire game. Like him and Paul George were battling it out for their teams. Paul George, by the way, is playing like top 3 MVP candidate in 2019. Paul George, the last fantastic 5 games.
He stepped up.
But Devin Booker putting up 40 points, 13 rebounds, and what was it, 11 assists? Like, he was controlling everything. And then there was that run where he scored 13 straight points in the third quarter when it looked like the Clippers were kind of, pressing their will on a little bit. And he was like, all right, I guess I'm just going to get to my spot in the midi, get fouled, get to the line, hit a pull-up 3, like, pass it, like that play where towards the end where Bridges got the steal and passed it to Booker on the 2-on-1 and Booker just sent it right back up to Bridges for an alley-oop dunk. Like, that was like, wow, Devin Booker has grown up. Because he could have taken that layup and maybe gotten a foul and won, but he was just in complete control of the game and was like, let me get Bridges a bucket for getting the steal.
Oh, dude, you can totally tell how much of an effect Chris Paul has had on him.
Yeah, for sure. On that whole team, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, it's crazy, is like, I think they're going to blow through the Clippers because this game was close. And obviously, but Devin Booker had a great game and they played through it. And like,
yeah,
especially now, if Marcus Morris is out too, it's over, man. Like Chris Paul's coming back. I don't see the Clippers making.
Oh, was he injured? What happened?
What?
Marcus Morris. I didn't see.
Oh yeah, he left with like a knee injury.
Oh, I must have missed that during the game. The part of the game was muted when the replay on League Pass, like the first 7 minutes of the third quarter were muted for some reason. Like the sound wasn't working. I mean, so maybe I missed it.
So So when they asked Ty Lue after the game, he said he wasn't sure where he was at. So,
I mean, this is where not having Kawhi hurts. Obviously,
yeah, obviously.
I actually think this would have been the Suns. I could tell you from speaking to a Suns fan I know and looking at Suns Twitter, they wanted the Jazz because they know that's the easier matchup.
Of course.
But then Kawhi got hurt, and so now the Clippers' ability to go small and switch everything is hampered when you don't have, arguably he's been a top 3 to 5 player all playoffs.
Yeah.
Right.
So real quick, Marcus Morris is questionable for game 2.
Yeah, the Clippers are losing bodies fast. It would be interesting to see what Ty Lue does, though. I do want to see what buttons he'll press.
Yeah, I give him a ton of credit. He has really
absolutely. He's really, think about how hard this is. Like he a LeBron coach, like Spoelstra and Ty Lue have washed off the stench of the stigma of being a coach that coached LeBron.
Yeah.
Because it's you think it's easy and all this stuff. How hard could it be? You're coaching arguably the greatest player ever and all that. But no, Ty Lue showed in that 2016 finals and has been showing it now. He's a mad scientist. And so is Eric Spoelstra as well. But I really do think this is just, at this point, it's just insurmountable for the Clippers. I was thinking Suns in 5 probably, even before the series started. And I just think at this point they're too short-handed to deal with a full-strength Suns team, especially if Chris Paul comes back.
Yeah. So, and again, I just don't know where they're going to be at. And yeah, I think the Suns coast to the finals here. And then you bring up a lot of good points with the Bucks, but I don't know. I
think the Suns are winning it all.
Drew Holiday can only guard one of Chris Paul and Devin Booker.
Right.
And to me, those are the versatility you have with Booker and Chris Paul. It's so fascinating because at this point now, Booker has developed to the point where he can kind of, not control, but he can be extremely versatile in terms of his ball handling and the way he runs an offense. You don't have to worry about him taking bad shots or jacking up stuff anymore.
Yep.
He's being incredibly intelligent and efficient with the ball, and he's grown up a lot. You can really tell.
Because he knows he has shooters and guys he could trust too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Ayton's grown up in this final, in this kind of playoff run. This team is, and they're deep.
They're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah,
they really are.
Deep.
Mm-hmm. They have shooters.
He's playing out of his mind. Cam Johnson.
Kane, it's a great reclamation project.
Absolutely.
He was out of the league 2 seasons ago and then has rehabilitated himself in Phoenix. It's incredible.
Yeah, well done.
That whole team plays hard. I think the only weakness the Suns have is probably backup center because Dario Saric, and I love the homie. He has a special place in my heart.
Great passing big.
What's up?
He's a great passing big.
Yeah, but unfortunately, even that's gone awry. He's been pretty bad the last month and a half, but he's the only option the Suns have as backup 5 because then it's Frank the Tank.
Oh, God.
Yeah. That is probably the only weak spot in a potential Giannis matchup that I'd be worried about. But the Suns are just they can run action with Chris Paul on one side and other stuff on the other side with say Booker or whoever, or the weak side shooter, whether it's Crowder in the corner. They just have a lot of weapons and interesting pieces, and I just think right now they're clearly the favorite, especially because the war of attrition is taking over, and the Suns are also just winning that battle pretty handily over all the teams that are left in the playoffs.
Yeah, fair. A fair assessment.
Let's go on to. Unfortunately, now we go on to the Eastern Conference Finals, where, at least I don't have to watch these playoffs I can watch these playoffs stress-free now.
Right.
Like, I don't hate the Hawks. I actually had fun watching Trae Young, turn into a star before everybody's eyes. I was off the Trae Young hype in college, and then I realized that he was way better than I thought. And then there was a rough patch there with Lloyd Pierce, and then Nate McMillan made them watchable again and organized and having them believe in themselves. And I could tell you, as somebody who has watched Trae Young now for 7 games roast my team, he really just has great control of the pace of the game. And I'm just really impressed by the Hawks. But what are your initial feelings on the Hawks and Bucks Eastern Conference Finals? Bucks have home court advantage.
I think this is also a blowout, to be completely fair.
I do too. I think this is where the Bucks stops for the Hawks. No, this is where the Bucks stops for the Hawks by the Bucks.
Yeah, I don't think this series is even close. I think you got Drew, because I guarantee you, Trae's I made the East Conference Finals. He's hyped, he's excited, and he turns around and fucking Drew Holiday's there licking his lips.
And not only that, the Bucks can present, even though the Bucks were also, I'd argue, just as disorganized as the Sixers were initially. At least they learned stuff as they got onto the Brooklyn series. They're still a train wreck. I'm not trusting Bud at all.
No.
But the Bucks just have way more options to score against the Hawks, defense than the Sixers do. It just became apparent that the Sixers just had no scoring options outside of Embiid, and Hope Tobias doesn't have a bad game. They have Giannis. They have Drew Holiday. Even though last series, Drew Holiday was shooting more like Eric Bledsoe.
Yo, he played like garbage.
Yeah, he was bad last series. Thankfully, Joe Harris played like a pumpkin for the Bucks, and so that kind of mitigated things a bit. But they still have Chris Middleton. They can also go with Giannis at the 5. I think they have settled on their rotation of 7 to 8 guys. I do think this could be a series Portis could play in as well, but I think the Bucks have just narrowed it down to who they can trust. I'm sure Bucks fans would rather Pat Connaughton not be a part of that equation, but at least Bud has a set rotation down. And I just think the Bucks just have way more options. And low-key, the Bogdanovich injury, the knee injury he was dealing with towards the end of the Sixers series, is going to be big for the Hawks. Bogey
was bailing him out of a lot of situations.
Yeah, earlier in the series, man, I'm telling you, I was scared of Bogey, and I also wasn't surprised because he's made for those moments. He showed it in Sacramento, in a place that's really hard to show that there are winning players there. Bogey stood out really easily as this guy could be a winning player on any team. And now the knee injury is we'll see how that impacts things. But I'm thinking a competitive 5-game series. Bucks and 5.
I don't even think that. I would think it's sweet, but that's just me.
I just think there's a game in there where the Hawks make 23s, because the Bucks defense honestly hasn't been as good either in the playoffs as it was in the regular season, or when they finished out the regular season. And there's probably a crazy Trae Young game in there where the Bucks withstand it and they just win some crazy close games. Because you never know with Mike Budenholzer, by the way. So this is why I'm saying it's gonna be 4 or 5, but it's gonna be a competitive 4 or 5. This Hawks team is scrappy. I learned a lot about this Hawks team coming out of the last series. They're mentally tough too, as cliche and first takey and undisputed as that sounds. They have a mental makeup that I really like.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm just not a huge Trae Young guy. We talked about that before, but again, I respect what he's been doing. He balled out the last series, so
he's been balling out in the Knicks series too.
yeah.
I'm just glad. I am glad for Atlanta fans though. Like, imagine being Doc Rivers and your playoff ineptitude was not able to overcome Atlanta sports.
So I posted this, or I responded to a Hawks fan the other day, and I was like, I need to push back here. And there's a thing of, they put out the post that was like, Luka Trae Young is going to go down as one of the rare trades in NBA history where no one lost. I was like, no, clearly,
look, man, we don't have to do this.
Yeah, I was like, we don't have to. I was like, you clearly lost. Like, don't fool yourself here. Like, Trae Young is good, but he's not Luka Doncic. There's clearly a winner and loser here.
Like, the Hawks have their franchise point guard. Like, yeah. I don't want to contribute to that discourse either way. I think we all know, like, Luka's status in the league.
Yeah.
And all that stuff. And, like, look, it's okay. We don't have to revisit this trade. Like, I know it was in vogue to do this trade and meme the Hawks and all that stuff, and then the other way around, we want to, prove it back and forth. But, like, come on, like, let's not do this.
Yeah, let's. You don't have to do this. It's okay.
Yeah.
Just, hey, you may have made a mistake or you lost, but you got probably the closest value you could probably get. Like, this is still really good value. You're good.
Trae Young's going to terrorize the Eastern Conference for like 15 years. I can already feel it.
Yeah.
Though, like, he's going to be good. He's going to be really, really good.
Yeah, like, you don't need to worry about it. You're fine. But don't make this about, it's this trade's even. Don't tell me this trade's even. That's all I'm saying.
It is funny that Trae and Ayton are in the conference finals before Doncic, though.
It is. But I think we'll talk about the Mavs eventually at some point. But, yeah, so.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Bob Voulgaris, Shadow GM.
It's such a weird. Oh, whatever. We'll talk about it later. We've gone a little long, but even then, it's it should be an interesting. I think after how good this past round was, these conference finals are pretty lackluster.
Yeah,
like, I think they should be pretty quick. But
they're probably, like, yesterday's game was really good. Like.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a battle.
I think we're gonna see a lot of close games, but probably quick series.
Yeah, and again, once Chris Paul comes back, the Suns are completely different team.
And Chris Paul can rest his shoulder more now.
Yeah, which is terrifying for the Bucks, probably,
because he was looking good last series against the Nuggets.
Yeah, so who knows?
Oh, by the way, what's your take on, before we go? What's your take on the Suns allegedly glorifying the Suns in 4 guy?
Whatever. I'm all. This is coming from a Laker fan that has an Alex Caruso jersey. Okay, like, I am all for. I'm all for fans and teams having their own little, like,
meme icons.
Like, our. Hey, man, I'm looking for a shirt that has a fake girl's name on it. Okay, like, I'm not one to judge. Okay.
Yeah, Lakers Twitter was searching for Miss Vivian, and it turns out she's. Yeah, I get it. No,
I'm not one to judge,
man. Here's why people were just being oversensitive about. One, it was self-defense. That guy poured beer intentionally on a Suns fan that spent his hard-earned money to see his team, whoop some ass in the playoffs for the first time in 10 years. And then he scares the guy off who poured the beer, and then the guy who poured the beer tried to sucker punch him. The Suns in 4 guy, he was on the lower ground, so he was at a disadvantage. And then he grabbed him and just started punching his face repeatedly. Let his friend know that he was fucking his boy up while he was punching him in the face. That was some gangsta shit. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
gangsta shit.
That was some gangsta shit. Like, I'm not gonna and then to cap it off, he did Suns in 4, and to cap it off, like, the Suns actually ended up sweeping later. Like, that was a legendary moment. Like, it was self-defense. He had the lower ground, and he took a sucker punch and still beat his ass. And they ran off scared like cockroaches when you turn on the light in the living room.
Yeah, they all do.
Like, that was crazy. Like, I was laughing so hard when as soon as he was like, "Hey, Suns in 4," I was like, this is gonna be a legendary meme. I could tell already.
Yeah. So, I'm all for it. I think it's fun.
We both got Suns Bucks finals.
Yeah. Suns Bucks final. I don't think it's close. I think they're fine.
I'm
like pretty confident that this is the
So I'm saying Suns in 5 for the Western Conference Finals, or I had that before. And then you two?
I have 2 sweeps.
You have 2 sweeps? Okay. I'll go Bucks in 5 for the conference finals, and then I'll go Suns in 6.
You wouldn't be surprised if both teams swept, right?
No, I would not. No.
Yeah, so you're just going 5 because you think that there's one fluky game in here.
I think there's one fluky game. There's something crazy happens. Clippers will probably win Game 3 or something at home. In front of their fans, their first Western Conference Finals game in the franchise's history. So, and then in the finals, I got Suns in 6.
Yeah,
over the Bucks.
Totally fair, but yeah, I think we're both on the same page here. I'm more excited for the finals matchup of Suns Bucks than I am for either one of these matchups.
They had good games. They had 2 good games this year.
Yeah, and like if everyone's healthy, I'm excited to see where this goes.
That's the main thing.
I'm just praying that both of these teams come out of these series with health intact. That's it.
That's my main thing. Both of the Bucks and the Suns are the healthiest right now, so I would just like to see a matchup of healthy teams.
100%.
Because we've really been inundated with bad news of injuries to star players. It would be nice to see a matchup with teams at full strength. Like when that Chris Paul news came out, I was like, oh God, like, are you serious? Like, this dude has the worst playoff luck with injuries ever.
I know, I feel so bad. But you know what?
He should be back.
I read something too. It was crazy. He like the chance of getting COVID with being fully vaccinated is like under
10%, right?
Yeah, and he's like, and he got it, and it's like unbelievable.
Right? But he should be back. So hopefully the finals will have 2 healthy teams, and we'll get to see it's been an unpredictable playoffs, that's for sure. I'm not so sure how much of the excitement from these playoffs is from close-ish games, or the fact that it's just really unpredictable and wide open. There's just been wild swings in this series that we probably never seen before.
Yeah. So we'll see. But
I was alive for the Terrence Mann game.
The Mann explosion.
The Mann explosion.
That's the name of this podcast. We only talked about it for like 5 minutes, but then that's the name of this podcast. The Mann explosion.
The Mann explosion.
All right, guys.
I can dig it.
Thank you all for listening to us ramble about random shit. And thank you. Jordan, we've been doing this podcast for almost 6 months now.
A minute. Yeah. Now. It's been I think we started in November.
Yeah, so over a little over 6 months. So yeah, it's been great. I've enjoyed doing this with you for this long, and it's going to continue. But I'm very excited.
No, I'm kidding. I've enjoyed doing it with you too.
Yeah, and I've enjoyed having whoever. If you are listening, I'm glad you've enjoyed it as well. Or if this is the first time you're listening, well, oops. You know what I'm saying? I'm sorry we didn't keep you, but thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll see you next week.
The B.O.B.